Hey guys, Caitriona for Outlander, Season 2, Episode 3, Useful Occupations and Deceptions, and obviously I was really looking forward to this episode. I mean, after last week's twist, I had no idea what was going to happen. Really, anything was fair game at this point. Knowing what happened last week, I did not know how this episode would play out. I was really worried about how this episode would play out, mainly because of the reveal. I honestly was kind of scared we get, I really think we're going to get another Webber in prison this season. I don't want that, but I think that's going to happen. I mean, obviously, like I said, Wentworth Prison was an amazing episode. It was really hard to watch, and I feel like that's going to happen again this season, and once again, another amazing episode. Not only did this episode build on last week's episode, we got some more amazing reveals here. We got some amazing scenes between Claire and Jamie. Probably some of the best scenes we've had between Claire and Jamie before, and I think maybe one of the first episodes in a while that really shows that while Claire and Jamie's relationship is very passionate and just very cute at times, it can also be very destructive and very emotional too. Very well shown in this episode, and Caitriona Bell and Sam Heughan really killed it in this episode, definitely, but let's just get in this episode. I am absolutely loving this season. There's nothing this season is doing wrong at this point. I just keep on loving it, but let's just get in this episode because there's a lot to talk about. So obviously, Claire's asleep in bed. She's awoken by the sounds of a carriage outside her window, and it's Jane returning home at dawn from a night out with Prince Charles, and you can tell she's trying her best to hide this secret from him. Jamie apologized, but she does not seem too upset by her face or her words. So we know this is not the first time it's happened, basically. He's done this a lot, and this is something that she's very much used to, but she's also trying to keep this secret at bay as much as she can, because he already has a lot of chaos going on. He's recovering from what Jack did, and this is just gonna stop him from being able to recover. She wants him able to recover, but at the same time, knowing Jack's out there, I mean, it's a very dangerous situation. So his quick words and swift movements reveal an agitation. We learn that Prince Charles is insisting on having a meeting with Minister Derveny, and that Jamie's been trying to put off introducing them for as long as possible. And he's not sure if the minister will even agree to meet with the prince, mainly because even though the prince is so, deep into his religion, he doesn't know if the minister really agrees what the prince is doing, if he really does want to meet with him, but that he has more pressing matters to deal with, such as the inspector coming to see Jared's warehouses. So he has a lot of things to deal with, we can tell. I mean, between having to deal with Jared's warehouses, having to deal with the fact, having to still recover from what's happened with Jack, which I do think he's kind of recovered from, but he's still, I think it's going to take a while. I mean, we don't see as much in this episode, but I do think it's going to take a while. And now this whole thing, I mean, there's just so much going on, and he reads off his laundry list of tasks for the day, which ends another night out with the prince before he will be home again, and all the while the servant is picking up Jamie's discarded clothing and helping him to dress in a fresh outfit as he talks, and basically, Claire seems disappointed and concerned, and Jamie speculates that stopping the rebellion is worth losing sleep. Basically, they can't sleep because they need to stop this rebellion. They need to focus on stopping the rebellion. She expresses her worry that there is too much sleep, and he reassures her that he will be able to sleep on the carriage to Versailles for chess with the minister, because obviously, he needs to get there, and trying to kiss her, she pulls back, and he understands, though, since he smells like smoke, and she adds that he also smells like cheap perfume, since the place they spend their nights is a popular brothel, and that is not helping her morning sickness. As we know, she is still throwing up because she's pregnant, and she still, has the baby and everything, so she's got a lot that she's dealing with as well, and you can tell, though, the most, important matter to her, she can't really talk to him about. The thing that bothers her the most, she can't even talk to him about, because she knows how he's going to react, and she knows that it's just too much for him to deal with at this point, so she can't really tell him anything. So basically, hanging his head out on the window of the carriage ride here apparently did not help dismiss the smell still clinging to his clothes and hair, sending her back to bed so she can rest before tea with Louise and the other ladies. She makes a snide remark, and he insists that she might learn something that would help him with their cause, and as he's leaving, Jamie realizes that his little wooden snake is missing from his spoon, and beseeches Claire to have the servants search for it in his absence, because obviously he needs it, and not spoon, Sporan, and he tells her to give his regards to her ladies, and he's down the stairs and out the door before he can grumble that they are not her ladies, because they're not. They're just, like I said before, the interactions that Claire's had with these women are not at all Claire and Gayless. This is someone that Claire is trying to get as an ally, to get on her side, and eventually she's just going to abandon. I could really see her doing that, especially in this episode. I definitely think that's going to be possible, her just abandoning them. I could definitely see her doing that. So Claire is then at tea later that day. However, she's playing cards across the table from Louise in her ornately decorated sitting room, basically just trying to hide that she really doesn't care about them as much as they think she does. We see a small monkey plays in its cage behind her. A couple of young women talk quietly on the couch nearby, and Mary Hawkins sits beside them, the small pain look on her face that we have seen in the last time we saw her. And all of a sudden, the girl blurts out that she cannot marry a Frenchman, and both confused, Claire and Louise turn to Mary to hear more of an explanation, and Mary seems hesitant to say more, assuring Claire Claire that Jamie is a kind and gentle man and does not trouble her in the way Mary has heard Frenchmen do. Because, Jamie, of course, is from Scotland. He's not French, and Frenchmen are known to be very aggressive, and both confused, Claire and Louise turn to Mary to hear more of an explanation, and Mary seems hesitant to say more. Now, we knew that Mary obviously is very shy, but I think this episode really starts to show more of Mary's character, and the more we go on with her, I think the more interesting Mary's character is becoming. She's assuring Claire that Jamie is a king and gentle man, and basically, Claire seems to have suspicions about where this is going, but she lets Mary continue. The girl then offers a very awkward description of sex, and Louise does a very poor job of hiding her laughter behind her hand of cards. She even mocks the girl, pretending to be shocked by this revelation, and finally laughing loudly at her. Again, we know that Louise doesn't really hide things, and she's very out when she when she really shows how she's feeling. She's very, she's very, she very graphically depicts sex, while Mary here, really just tries to blur it and tries to be as innocent as possible because she really is very innocent, and she's laughing very loudly at her. Claire's in a more tactful way tells Mary that they need to have a talk, and Mary, upset by Louise's laughter, insists that men do not do that where she is from, and basically, Claire can see that Mary's dealing with a lot, and she really does actually want to help her. But then comes the revelation that I absolutely loved. I thought this was incredible, because as we know, once Claire first met Mary, there was some sort of a connection. She didn't know what it was, but somehow she knew Mary, and she didn't know how she really knew her, or what was going on there, but she finally finds out in this episode, because when she says she's from Seaford, Sussex, Claire suddenly remembers why the girl's name is familiar to her. When they first met, we see a flashback of Frank and her. They found this old Bible that he found in his grandmother's attic, reveals that Mary Hawkins is none other than the wife of Jack Randall, and they're going to get married, and is several times great-grandmother. So Claire heads home realizing that and so now Claire's in this very tough situation. I love that they did this with Mary, because we knew that there was some sort of connection with Claire and Mary, and now we know what it is, that Mary was, in fact, is going to get married to Jack. She's not married yet, but she's going to get married to Jack, and now Claire has a lot to deal with, because at the same time, she's realizing that she had always known Jack could not have died in Wentworth, or else Frank would never have existed. The problem is, though, she does want him dead. She obviously wants to protect him from Jamie. But knowing that Jack is out there, I mean, she knows that Jamie is, not going to be safe ever, and that there really is no saving Jamie, because Jack will always be out there. And in order for Frank to live, Jack needs to, live as well. And obviously, we know that Jack lives because we know that Frank lives. And it was interesting the way that Claire actually brought up Frank. We haven't heard her brought up Frank in a while. We don't really know if she's cared as much, but you can see she obviously does want Frank to still live, because obviously, he's her husband, everything. Well, he was her husband. Well, he still kind of is her husband. So now I think we're starting to get some pieces together of what's going to end up happening to Jamie. I really think that Jack is going to be the one to kill Jamie. I mean, as we know, Jamie dies on the battlefield in episode 1, and I do think that Jamie is going to end up getting killed by Jack in episode 3. I'm trying not to overanalyze that. Like, I'm trying not to focus more on that and focus more on the past. I think that's what the show wants us to do. It's given us little clues here and there, but I feel like it wants us to move forward rather than move backward. But in many ways, it is moving forward, because it's thinking ahead, and this isn't a show where you constantly be like, oh, that's how that's going to happen, that's how that's going to happen. But I do like the way they're starting to put some clues together, because I really do think whatever happens to Jamie is the results of Jack being back. I definitely think that is going to happen. So basically, she had to repress the knowledge, refusing to dwell on the connection between that evil man, her first husband, yet to be born. Now she understands in order to ensure Frank's existence that Jack would need to survive at least another year so he could father a child with Mary. But here's the thing. If, after that they decide to kill, then they can kill Jack. That's the thing. Until they, father a child, which will be Frank's father, then they can just kill Jack right then and there, which I think that'd be the perfect opportunity to do that, but we'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, we know we're not going to get that far, because, of course, we know what happens in episode 1, but I do like that they're trying to keep us a little bit optimistic. As we know, there really is no saving Jamie because of what ends up happening, and that makes it all the more tragic, just knowing this reveal. It was a very well done reveal. I mean, I thought they really could have done this in a different way, but I really think they do it to the best way possible. Claire forgetting what happened and basically, forgetting all this was going to happen, and then suddenly realizing it just by this little encounter with Mary. As much as she wants to help Mary, Mary's a very dangerous ally to have, because Mary, of course, is going to be marrying Jack, and there's no way to prevent that from happening. That's something in history. That's something that Claire can't change, because then her husband won't be alive, and we'll have to see what happens with that, because that's going to be very interesting. So still agitated by these ponderings and the knowledge she has yet to share with anyone that Jack is still alive, she returns home and a servant tells her about the numerous invitations they have received for social events that week alone, and then returns a lace accessory to her. She studies it for a moment and then asks the servant where Suzette, her handmaid, is, because she had been given it to her to mend. As we know, that maid that basically made her, basically did everything for her and said, you don't have to do this, I'm going to do it for you. And the servant seems reluctant to answer, and Claire finds the girl in bed with Murtaugh, which was pretty funny, honestly. The fact that she's just having sex with Murtaugh, and she doesn't even care that they're naked or being caught in the middle of things, and Claire then storms out of the girl's room. This is not something that Claire is clearly used to. I mean, she's used to having to hide these things, but, in French, it's just well known. Like, they very much expose themselves. This is just their culture. Their culture is very much just, basically just expose themselves and show off their bodies and everything. That's something that they do, and Claire's definitely not used to this. And you can definitely tell, I think, that Murtaugh is starting to adjust to this time period. And she's busy mending the lace herself when Murtaugh finds her, hair down, his shirt hanging out of his pants, and he refuses to apologize, and Claire informs him that his time is his own. She's clearly upset, though, that he's not using that time to help them thwart the rebellion, because he's really not focused on that. And it's also keeping Jamie, as we know, it's especially keeping Jamie out of all hours of the night, and she also has a problem with him keeping her maid from her work and makes a small comment about being in the middle of the day, and when he asks her when she became so prudish about sex, she blows up at him, reminding him of who runs this house, and, I like that she did tell him, look, I'm sorry, you can definitely tell that it's not just about, this, it's obviously what's going on with Jack, she just needs to get it out, and finally, she actually does tell him what's going on. She tells him straight out that Jack's alive, and he does not believe her at first, insisting that, he had seen the dead body himself, and that there's no way that he could be alive, but when she explains how she learned of it, he allows that it may be true. He agrees with their decision not to tell Jamie, since the first thing he would do would be to run off looking for his revenge and end up arrested and hanged, and obviously, that's something that they can't deal with right now. They need to focus on, the rebellion, and they can't focus on going after Jack. That's just something that they cannot afford right now. They need to focus on one thing before they focus on another thing, and obviously they know if Jamie is going to find out that Jack is alive, he's going to go after Jack, and they need to keep him, as far from knowing as they can. It might not be easy to do, but they have to at least try, and I like that they're kind of fearful of whether or not they're actually going to, not tell him what's going to happen, but at the same time, they need to be very careful with this, because this could end up really bad for Jamie. I mean, knowing what he can do, knowing he's out for revenge, really, a bevy of things could happen, definitely. So, Basically, we then see she's guilty and distraught at keeping it from Jamie, but Murtaugh reminds her that it is to save his life and that he will keep the secret with her, and that really is the best thing to do is to keep this from Jamie. As we know, we know how Jamie would react. The best thing to do is to keep this from him. So she thanks him, leaves to finish his business with Suzette, and basically says, look, you can continue having sex with her. So Claire asks him about birth control, but upon realizing confusion, she determines to retrieve something for Suzette herself, because, of course, they didn't have condoms back then. She said, what about birth control? And then she realizes, oh, they didn't have condoms. Which I do like that Claire is still adjusting a little bit. Even though I think she's fully adjusted and kind of acclimated to this time period, you can tell that there is still a part of her that still is forgetting some things, and that's one of the things she is forgetting, and I did like seeing that. That is something I definitely really did enjoy, and I thought that was actually really well done. I definitely really did enjoy that she is still kind of acclimating to that. So, meanwhile, at Versailles, Jamie's in deep thought and conversations with Minister Duvernay over a chessboard. The hall is lined with occupied chess tables, while ladies chat at benches along the side. The minister is commenting about how their funds are depleted by the war with Austria, because as you know, when you have a war, it really makes you lose a lot of money. We've talked about this in my history class, that wars cost a lot of money, and that's one of the reasons why people don't like war, because they have to spend tons of money on weapons and things like that, and how the King of France would be reluctant to fund another. It's just not the right thing to do. They're already using all this money. If they would fund another, then they're going to lose all this. Then they're going to lose even more money. And he's more interested in chess than politics, and brags about beating Jamie in 3 moves, and Jamie comments on the connection between chess and politics, making a move that shocks the minister. And in many ways, yeah, politics and chess are very similar. Both chess and politics, you want to dethrone somebody, to get to the higher place, and basically, he insists he will beat Jamie, and there ensues a flurry of movements, the minister appearing desperate while Jamie leans back, relaxed and confident. A great scene. I love how confident Jamie is right now, because he doesn't really know of the impending doom that he's really facing. And when Jamie makes a final move, the minister does not hesitate to concede the victory, gets up, as if to leave, and they shake hands, and we realize it is not the first time Jamie had beaten him at this game. It's clear he's beaten him before, and he just has this confidence in himself. So Jamie turns the conversation back to his political purposes. He reminds the minister of a promise he had made offering assistance when Jamie needed needs it, and the minister suggests he tries losing a game sometimes, but Jamie insists that he respects him too much to do that, and the minister gives him permission to respect him less. Relenting, the minister asks how he can help Jamie, and Jamie asks him to tell Prince Charles what he had just told him, because clearly, he can get through to Prince Charles, and that was what this whole, idea was about, was for him to get to Prince Charles. And as they talk, they have switched sides, preparing for another chess match. The minister is confused by this request, but Jamie explains that it is for the good of his people. The minister explains he cannot speak in an official capacity, but Jamie encourages it to be unofficial in a location known for secrecy, Madame Elise's brothel, and he says he can tell his wife the truth, that he is out with Jamie, and the minister, liking this plan, turns his attention to their new chess game, bringing the metaphor of chess and politics full circle. So we see Claire again, this time in a rundown of town near Master Raymond's, who should be there whispering about keeping his secrets, but then we see the Comte, which, yes, I've been pronouncing his name wrong, it's pronounced Comte. Who she had run into, of course, in the first episode. We know that he has relations with the Comte. We know that those two, I'm not talking like sexual relations, I mean like he has connections to the Comte, that's what I meant. Master Raymond seems to be more and more like a Gaylist, but more like a toxic Gaylist, because just like Gaylist was a witch, and obviously involved in all this witchcraft and things like that, of course Claire didn't know that, this is more of if Claire was to know that Gaylist was a witch from the first time that they met. This is a very complicated relationship. You can tell that Claire does want to be friends with Master Raymond, and Master Raymond wants to be friends with her, but he doesn't know about what she did with the Comte, and Master Raymond sees that they recognize her, they have a tense exchange where the Comte links off with his secret purchase, and he doesn't even tell Master Raymond what's going on. So she challenges Master Raymond about his friendliness with his enemies. He remarks that sometimes a common interest requires working with people who one does not like or trust, because as we know, he does not like the Comte. He knows the Comte, but he's not a fan of the Comte. In fact, he kind of feels like he's his superior, which is very interesting, and it does add a lot of conflict here. The fact that he knows the Comte, I mean, the Comte could tell him really anything, but obviously the Comte is his enemy, so he's not going to tell him, obviously, what's going on with Claire. So, basically, he brings her inside. She reveals she's looking for something that would stop a pregnancy. Under his scrutiny, she clarifies it's for someone else, not for her. Master Raymond is happier with this, sends his assistant to retrieve the contraceptive from his storeroom, and as he's climbing down from his ladder, basically she tries to get something that's like the pill, but like obviously they didn't have the pill back then. So as he's climbing down from his ladder, she inspects a jar of white powder, and he, seeming nervous, rushes over for her to take it away. It's a poison he missed having in his store, but insists that what he sells his customers is actually an imposter that causes immediate physical discomfort. It doesn't actually kill the person. He says that his customers attribute the recovery to spiritual or divine reasons, and everyone comes out all right in the end. So that's very interesting we found this out. So changing the subject, he shifts it back to the contraceptive, and she explains it is for her handmaid, which he finds interesting, commenting that it's usually the handmaid buying it for the lady so that she can hide her affairs. And this is clearly something that hasn't been happened before, that Claire's actually helping this maid. And the thing is, back then, you didn't give a shit about the maid. The maid did what you wanted them to do, and that's kind of just how it was. Claire, on the other hand, we know is a caring person, and we know that Claire really does care for the maid because that's just how she's used to. She's a kind person like that. She's not like Louise, who is so, rich and all that stuff she rubs in everyone's faces. Claire is very much, just a very classy type of person, and that's something that France doesn't have a lot of, and that's something that I think Raymond really does admire. So Raymond suggests that they try using your medical skills at a charity hospital, since they are always in need of skilled healers, and this does make sense, because we know that Claire is a healer, and she can use that to her advantage here. So he comments they depend on volunteers, and that the others are not as perceptive as her, or much in need of helping others, and Claire seems to glow at the suggestion. She thinks it's a great idea that she should be working there, because, she's already a healer, it's a good thing for her. So Murtaugh helps Claire out of the carriage at the charity hospital later that afternoon. We see the steps crowded with dirt, plainly dressed people scarfing down the food being handed out the nuns at the top of the stairs, and Murtaugh's not impressed, so she tells him to stay with the carriage, and he points out how upset Jamie is going to be when he hears about this, but she insists that you'll be happy if she is. And, Jamie, obviously she didn't check in with Jamie, he's not going to be happy about this. So as she walks away, a beggar approaches Murtaugh, and he pushes him off, and inside the dark halls are lines with rows of sick people lying on cots. One of the workers' sister, Angelique, asks Claire if it is what she thought, and she responds that it is. Claire sees a couple of physicians that they depend on, such as a butcher, who is their expert in muscles and bones, and another man who makes trusses, acting as their urinoscopist, and She's also introduced to Booten, who she's surprised to see a dog there. She didn't think this would happen, but it's kind of a more safe, casual environment, and she's not really used to this. But Mother Hildegard is not far behind, and Mother Hildegard is clearly going to be a big part of the season. I really do like the bonding between Mother Hildegard and Claire. Claire explains why she's there, but the mother is skeptical of her medical expertise and asks the sister to find Claire something to do, because she doesn't really know if Claire is right for this job. And basically, this something to do ends up being emptying chamber pots into a large wheeled pot that she's pushing along. But at least it's something. I think that's good. At least it's something for Claire to do. At least she has something of a job, and I think Claire's fine with that. Even though this isn't really the job she wants, at least she has something. And the mother sees her working and continues to watch as Claire, curious as always, spies a urine sample near one woman's bed, wondering what the purpose of the urine sample would be during this time period before litmus paper and the like. She takes a dab in her finger and tastes it, because obviously back then they didn't have the technology that we did then. Why the hell did they have a urine sample? So the mother approaches, asks if she can tell what the woman has, and Claire, startled but not shaken, asks the woman if she's thirsty. She admits that she is, and always hungry, but never able to put on weight no matter how much she eats. Claire diagnoses the woman with diabetes, called sugar sickness in that time, and informs the mother that she will not live the month and that there's nothing they can do to save her. So basically, that's what's going to happen, that the mother is in fact going to die, and that the woman has diabetes, and which they did not know was diabetes at the time. They thought it was just sugar sickness, and the mother reports that it's the same diagnosis that one of the other physicians gave earlier, and is surprised to find a woman who could diagnose like that. Obviously, Claire can do that because of where she's from, but she can't obviously say that to them. But I am kind of wondering if the mother is possibly going to find out something like that. I could kind of see the mother and Claire, getting really close. I could really see that happening, and I do think Mother Hildegard is going to be one of Claire's most trusted allies. I could already see that happening. So she sends her to assist Sister Angelique with dressing another boy's wounds rather than continuing with the chamber pot chore, because she can see that Claire's very well versed in this, and that she really does know what she's doing, and that she really misjudged Claire as well, which I really did like seeing. I like seeing that she actually realized that she did misjudge Claire. So basically, after this happens, we then see, where was I? I forgot where it was. Okay, so over in the brothel, we glimpse a young boy moving through the crowd, pickpocketing one of the men unnoticed. The minister is explaining to the prince how the current situation with Austria has caused this woman to go elsewhere to avoid tax increases, and the prince claims to understand, but the minister is distracted by the woman swirling around him on the tables, and the prince claims he already has raised almost the full amount needed to fund the war, which stops both of the other men in their tracks, and the minister, after glancing to Jamie, apologizes for misunderstanding the prince's situation, and wonders what his purpose and meaning is then, and the prince brags that wealthy members of the British aristocracy believe in his father's claim to the throne and have promised him large sums of money. He misinterprets the look on Jamie's face as relief and awkwardly touches his face. Jamie very calmly removes his hand while covering his expression with a more appropriate one. So Prince Charles offers an alliance with France if the king agrees to fund the remainder of what he needs, and after the war is won, the minister, intrigued by promises of an alliance, says he will speak with the king about it, and Jamie, realizing that his endeavors had failed, thankfully, the minister insists on evidence first, which Charles readily agrees to. So kicks into the minister's hand, they all celebrate the new alliance with a toast, and he was able to pull it off. He got the minister and the prince on the same side. It seems like the minister is going to help him, and everything seems okay there. So Jamie, upset by what he has learned, he returns home to find Claire still out, and he stays up working on correspondence in the books for the business, but is clearly agitated and concerned with her lack of appearance, because it's well past dark by the time she returns, excited and spilled over with stories of what she's been up to at the hospital. Murtaugh complains about having to listen to her stories all the way home, and Jamie asks irritably where she has been. Not turning from his papers yet, she tells him that she was at the hospital, which makes him turn and wonder what had taken her there, because he didn't want her anywhere, as we know. We know he said, stay put, don't go anywhere. And, she did in fact go to, the hospital, and I really love the scene between Claire and Jamie. It shows Jamie's protectiveness, it shows Jamie's, sort of manliness, and just sort of goes with how things were at the time. Murtaugh consents attention to excuse himself to get something to eat, whispering "and I told you so" to her on the way out, and I love Murtaugh's comic relief. It really does add a lot, and it really does add a lot of, comedic stuff to this season. I really do enjoy that. So Claire explains how they needed volunteers and about her skills being useful there. She enthuses about the mother and the story, the urine sample, and tasting it, which Jamie does not find as amusing as she does. In fact, he doesn't find amusing at all, and Claire asks what's wrong, and then that she thought he would be happy for her. And instead, he points out the pregnancy and all the disease she's exposing their child to, and I can understand why James is upset, because obviously, back then, stuff like disease were much easier to contract, and he obviously does not want this baby to contract or this stuff, and Basically, Jamie does not understand why she would even take that risk, and she explains about how she needed to feel useful and to have purpose in her days. And this nails him further as he reminds her about the rebellion that they're trying to stop. He wants to know how working the hospital is going to help them save Scotland, because it's not going to. And she asks him what he wants her to do, but the best he can come up with is that he wants her home to help him when he has a problem, which we don't really know if that's really what it's about. And at this point, he finally explains why he's truly upset and how Prince Charles deceived him too, all despite the time they have been spending together. And Clarence says that the alliance between France and England will not happen for another 100 years, and Jamie realized that Prince Charles is smart that he had let on to Jamie, has been keeping secrets from him, and has no idea what to do next. So basically, Prince Charles has been lying to him all along. He doesn't know really how to handle this, and I like that Jamie's kind of not really knowing what to do here. He really is turning to Claire because he really is out of options at this point. He really doesn't know what to do. So I definitely did like seeing that, and trying to smooth things over, she apologized to Jamie, who's returned to his books and begins rubbing his shoulders. She knows this was all his idea and that the work is falling squarely on his shoulders, but assures him that she wants to help however she can. That is why he had come home to find her, but instead she was out indulging herself, and obviously, he was really upset. He didn't like that she went on her own. He didn't like that she wasn't there for him. Various things like that. She's not focusing on the mission, things like that, and she corrects him saying there was an indulgence, but helping people, admitting at the same time it does not make her feel good, and gives her life meaning. That really is what it is. She wants meaning here. She doesn't just want to just stay around while Jamie does everything. She does want to contribute, and this is how she contributes. So Jamie wants to know what gives his life meaning or makes him feel good right now when he's spending his time with the prince to gain his secrets and undermine the rebellion, and ignoring her when she's clearly upset, he storms down the stairs and out of the house. And it really was what I love about this fight is that it really was about purpose. Jamie doesn't feel like he has much of one, while Claire does, and he kind of wants more of a purpose. He doesn't just want to be helping the prince, because that's just focusing on the mission. Claire actually has something to do right now, and he's just there really to just fight the rebellion, which he really wants more to do than, he's actually doing. So Murtaugh and Suzette, who have been canoodling nearby, we do see that they're still having sex. He comments that he had known that would not go well. Suzette chimes in with their knowledge of their marriage bed, and which we know is not good since he's having nightmares about Jack whenever they have sex, as we know. It's not really good right now. So Murtaugh and Suzette seem to be better than Claire and Jamie's sex life, as we know, because they don't really have much of one. So back in the brothel, we see the young boy again, and this time Jamie spies him pickpocketing the wealthy patrons. The boy's small and quick and almost eludes Jamie in the subsequent chase through the nearby homes, but Jamie outwits him, catches him anyway. The boy threatens to tell his wife that he's been sleeping with the prostitutes if he tries to turn him into the police, but Jamie knows that Claire will not believe that. Instead, he tells the boy he will inform Madame Elise about his actions, and the men are very drunk. Jamie expresses his interest in the boy, and after assuring the lad that he's not mean it the way the boy thought at first, he offers him work. So he turns the boy upside down, he shakes everything from his pockets to the ground, then tells the boy he will not pickpocket for anyone but him now. He tells him to keep everything now spilled on the ground except for the little wooden snake he recognizes as his own, and after spying the snake and being confronted with his theft, the boy asks Jamie how much he will pay him, and their agreement is secured. So now it seems like Jamie's going to help this boy. Maybe he's going to make a life for him. I really do like seeing that. It does seem like Jamie is going to get something other than just fighting the rebellion. So Claire's tossing and turning in bed, and then hears it crashing downstairs. She hurries down to investigate, because obviously she wants to know what it is, and basically we see that she finds the boy in the large dining room, and we also see that we're starting to see the swelling of her stomach, and she finds the boy in the large dining room eating a chicken leg as he props his feet up the table, and of course she doesn't know who this boy is, but it seems like Jamie is taking him home, and the boy's very confused on what's going on there, and I like that Murtaugh smacked him on his head, and basically we see, in fact, his comment to Suzette is how he received the chicken, and Jamie appearing in the hall outside, instructing Murtaugh to take the boy upstairs, where Suzette is making him a bath in the servants' quarters and finds him something to sleep in. The boy bows again to Jamie, wishes her a good night before Murtaugh whisks him away, followed by a word of caution from Jamie about guarding his sporran from the boy. So Jamie tries to walk away, but Claire asks him for clarification on the boy's presence, because she has no idea where this boy has come from. He's basically let this boy into the house without her consent, and we learn the boy has actually been renamed Fergus since his given name is not a masculine enough one, and we also learn that he has hired him to seal the letters men carry to and from Prince Charles so that they can better learn his secrets. So Claire comments him on the good plan, he simply thanks her and heads upstairs to bed. So basically, we then see this montage of Fergus pickpocketing letters, Jamie spending time with Prince Charles, who continues to espouse political rhetoric without revealing details of his plans. Claire's in the hospital with Mother Hildegard, and Jamie and Murtaugh trying to piece together the parts of the rebellion from the letters and if there's actually an English conspiracy, as Prince Charles claims. So staying with them, we learn that others are eavesdropping on these letters before they are, which is why the letters are in code. However, it's a code that Jamie can easily break, but there's nothing substantial in the letters. One letter, though, contains a sheet of music written in German. Both of them are clearly clearly tired, but the sheet of music catches Murtaugh's attention, and Jamie suggests finding a music teacher who can also speak German, and that might be the best thing to do. And Murtaugh knows of someone, but not someone that Jamie's gonna like having to ask help from. Now, who this is, we don't know, but basically, in the hospital, Claire is helping examine a patient who seems to have a secondary infection somewhere, but that they are having difficulty locating it. And Hildegard brings Bhutan over, instructs him to smell the patient's mouth. He does not seem to find anything interesting there, so we ask the dog to inspect the rest of the men, warning him to be careful of the man's broken leg. And sniffing the offending limb, Bhutan immediately begins to bark, and basically, Claire reopens the wound with a scalpel. We're rewarded with a view of even more pus. Very hard to watch, just medical scenes like this. Very hard stuff to watch, but again, I think we saw this because Claire sees this stuff all the time. This does not faze her because she's used to seeing these kind of things, and basically, Mother Hildegard's even impressed over Claire's lack of concern because, she's used to seeing this, and back then, there weren't many nurses that didn't freak out. Claire doesn't freak out, though, because she's seen this stuff before. So Jamie actually shows up there, and Claire's concerned by his presence because he, obviously she doesn't know why he's there. He seems reluctant to ask for help, but his mother, Hildegard, we find out that Murtaugh recommended him to show the music to, and she takes him to the piano in her quarters, but is hesitant to assist with something illegal or dangerous, and Claire vouches that Jamie will not be asking if it was not important, and the mother trusts her. So the mother recognized the work as she plays this something a friend of hers had sent her recently. She's referring to Johann Sebastian Bach, and of course that's a very famous composer if you guys don't know that. Claire's surprised at the mother by recognizing the name since he's not famous and his work is not popular yet. Now, how she knows Bach, I don't know, but, he's not popular at this point. So she remarks that her friend's work is clever but lacks the hearts. The music that Jamie had brought her was a poor imitation of Bach's work with frequent key changes, some for no apparent reason. They realized that the key to the code in the letters is related to the key changes in the music, and that I found very interesting that we found out here. So, back at home, Claire, Jamie, and Murtaugh pour over the notes. Now they know how to decipher the code. The deciphered letter proves that Prince Charles' claim is real and is signed by someone named S. He's not lying to them. He is telling the truth. And while the promised £40,000 is not as substantial as an amount as the prince had bragged, it might still be enough to convince the minister and the king to fund the remainder of the amount needed. So the author talks about being back at the end of the month to solidify the deal, and at the same moment, Claire and Jamie realize that S is most likely the Duke of Sandogram, who they had previous dealings with, and of course, as we know, is definitely not to be trusted. So Claire reveals he's playing both sides, protecting himself no matter who ends up winning the war, and I think we kind of were hinted at that last week, that he is in fact playing both sides. Jane believes he can convince the Duke that's a bad investment, which would stop their rebellion in his plan. Excited, he hurries into the adjoining room for some whiskey to toast with, and Murtaugh whispers a reminder to her about who works for the Duke, and of course, as we know, Jack works for the Duke. He tells Claire to basically tell Jamie to basically tell them what's going on. Claire does not do that. Jamie returns, gushing about how good it is, and basically, I think Claire just doesn't want Jamie to, lose this hope. She wants him to have this hope. She wants him to feel good, because he hasn't felt good in a while, and now he's actually feeling good. He's feeling like he has a purpose. She doesn't want to deride his spirits, and they toast to Mother Hildegard and to Claire for being there when he needs her, and basically Jamie catches the glance that Murtaugh and Claire share, but he brushes it away. He kisses her and hugs her. She shares a look over his shoulder with Murtaugh, who's displeased, shaking his head, obviously because she didn't tell Jamie, and that's how the episode ends. So a lot to talk about in this episode. Obviously, love this episode. Amazing stuff overall. Jamie is going to find out about Jack. It's very evident that Jamie's going to find out. I don't know when exactly, but he's going to find out very soon. I don't know exactly how he's going to, but it's got to happen at some point. It's definitely, I think we're hinted at that it's definitely going to happen. I can't wait to see what happens with that. It's going to be I'm obviously not excited, but I think it's going to be interesting to see really what happens there, if Jack is responsible for what happens with Jamie. I like this bonding that Claire has with Mother Hildegard. I think it adds a lot to the show. What's Claire going to do with Mary? Because Mary seems like she wants to be an ally, but at the same time, we know she's very dangerous because of what ends up happening between her and Jack, and I don't really know what's going to happen with that. But overall, guys, another great episode. Any other questions I have? I don't want this video to go too long. You guys already know what I talked about, so anything else I want to talk about, I'll just put in the description and do that. But let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love your thoughts on it. What do you think of the season overall? I am absolutely loving this season. I think this season is definitely topping last season. There's so much love about it, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for The Path, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.